There's absolutely no doubt that people like Klaus Schwab, they think they can rule the world in a way that their ideas, which are basically crappy ideas.
So you think that people sometimes attribute too much to the World Economic Forum? It's not as influential as some people think.
Yeah, I think if you think there's a group of super rich people sitting in a back office and making decisions what should happen with the world, that is not happening.
I think the whole construct of equality is a false construct in a way. We are not equal.
I was myself part of the establishment as CEO of Deutsche Rohstoff AG. I went with government to other countries. But I saw that the system really is not reformable towards more liberty for the individual. It's impossible. It's just going into the other direction. World Health Organization, that is dangerous, right? If all
and the
countries,
United Nations sometimes.
I think. Yeah, they're trying to becoming more and more powerful on all fronts. But thankfully, we have 200 different states, right? And if we had one world government, that would be total hell. And I admit that they want that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of You're the Voice. Thanks for being with me here today. I'm Efrat. I'm at Trezor offices in Prague. Right after, we're on the third day, the last day of a conference called Liberty in Our Lifetime, which is a conference of the Free Cities Foundation. And I'm here today with the CEO of the Free Cities Foundation, Titus Gebel. Hello, Titus.
Hello, Efrat. Actually, I'm not a CEO. That's
You're the
Peter.
founder.
I'm the founder.
The founder.
Yeah.
That's right. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So, Titus, I will just start with a quick introduction for my audience that doesn't know you, and then we'll dive straight into the questions. So, Titus Gebel is an entrepreneur with a PhD in international law and an executive worldwide network. Amongst others, he co-founded Frankfurt-listed Deutsche Rohstoff. Is that
Very
how you
good.
say Rohstoff?
Yeah.
Where he served as CEO for 8 years, and the Canadian nuclear startup Dual Fluid Energy. Today, Dr. Gebel is founder and CEO of Tipolis, a company which creates new models for urban living through innovation in governance. He published the book Free Private Cities, Making Governments Compete for You, where he lays out a framework for establishing autonomous, privately operated jurisdictions. Dr. Gebel played an important role in the establishment of the most ambitious special zone to date, which is called Prospera in Honduras, and we'll talk about that a bit more later. He also advises other countries in special economic zones, and that's a key phrase that will be with us in this episode, special economic zones. So he played a special role as advisor to many special economic zones innovation and is the president of the Free Cities Foundation, as I said, which works to enable and promote free cities around the world. Okay, so Titus, how did you get to the topic of free cities?
Basically out of frustration with politics and being an entrepreneur and seeing we get ever more regulations and they say, yeah, but you're included, you can give your statement, right? So you get several thousand pages and say you can make a statement. We don't have a time to do that, right? Nobody has. And so it's a fake participation thing. But it was more that I was for more than 30 years active in classical liberal politics in Germany. I was a member of party, was in several organizations, was even personal friend to some federal ministers. I was myself part of the establishment as CEO of Deutsche Rohstoff. I went with government to other countries in their government planes and stuff like that. But I saw that the system really is not reformable towards more liberty for the individual. It's impossible. It's just going into the other direction. Partly because the system is completely entrenched. There are so many people benefiting from state tax incomes that other people are paying, making a living out of that. And on the other side is also that the parties that promise that they're distributing money to the people eventually get elected, right? I mean, it's easier to vote for somebody who is promising you money than to work for yourself. That's natural human behavior, so it's no need to complain about that. It's just how it is. And if a politician doesn't feed that need, that demand, he will be eventually elected out of power. And that, in the reality, meant that classical liberal parties were always on the retreat, saying, yeah, we are preventing even worse stuff, but there was not a message they could make, like, vote for me, I do nothing for you, which is what the libertarian candidate practically would have to say. And insofar, I said, there's no chance. There's absolutely no chance. We will get ever more taxes, ever more regulation. I mean, if you see what's happening now in the Western world, we're getting censorship, right?
Yes.
Nobody would have thought that this is possible 25 years ago.
Yep.
And insofar, I said, okay, we have to. I can now try for another 30 years to convince people that freedom and self-determination and self-responsibility is good for us, it's good for everyone, it's more ethically superior and all that, expecting a different result, which I think is not happening. So my conclusion was take myself completely out of the system and create a new product coming from the side, saying, okay, I created something which I call a free private city at that time. If you like it, you come. If you don't like it, just stay where you are. So I was transferring the idea that of the market into what I call the market of living together, so that, like in the supermarket, you can choose for yourself what you buy, right, and which products you want to pay for. Yep. That's the same here, right? I'm basically let people decide what level of services they want and what they want to pay for it. And so I started thinking about how we can make this happen. And it took several years until I came up with a real concept, which I published in 2018. So we were very successful with Deutsche Rohstoff. So I could retire at the end of 2014, and then since then I'm basically exclusively working on that model.
You're the Voice is brought to you by Trezor, the original Bitcoin hardware wallet company pioneering the development of self-custody for crypto assets since 2013, empowering individuals with an open source device, enabling beginners and experts to easily and securely hold their coins. I find my Trezor super easy to use and recommend it to my friends and family. Enjoy my 5% discount on Trezor products by clicking the link in the show notes and using the code FLAT. So can you share more about the model and what do free private cities stand for?
Yeah, for terminology, the Free Cities conference that we just had and where you were a participant and a speaker is covering a lot more than just my model of free private cities. But I think the model of a free private city is still, I think, the most convincing, at least in my understanding. The idea is that there's a private operator, a for-profit company that is providing protection of life, liberty, and property, is providing independent dispute resolution, and a certain legal framework, which is normally something that is already existing, like common law or civil law systems that are around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And in exchange, you pay something for that. Other than that, you are free to choose as you like. That means a spontaneous order will come into existence, will be created by the people, and they will just decide what causes they want to support, with whom they want to associate, how much they want to spend on education, healthcare, pension, you name it. The important thing is that this is all based not on a fictional social contract that is changed all the time, but never by us. But it's a real contract. It's a written contract. It's basically a service contract. My thesis is government is nothing other than a service.
Service provider, yeah.
Government is not something special, godlike. It's a service, right?
Yes.
It's a protection service, more first and foremost. And the other big problem in today's world is that the rules are constantly changed. So you cannot really make any predictions. You cannot make long-term planning. not only as a business, but also as an individual, right? For pension and all that, you know that they're changing the rules all the time. They're changing taxes. You don't know what happens to your property. Maybe they come with a ridiculous high property tax in 5 years.
Yeah.
And so far we said that's not going to happen. Free private city, the private also means that not that it's exclusive. It means that it is on the same level. It's at arm's length, right? You are a customer, I'm a service provider. It's not that you're a subject and I'm a ruler.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, we cannot change the rules because we have no more rights than you. So if we have signed a contract, it is also protecting you for the future that we can't change, your neighbors can't change, and not even a majority can change it.
Okay.
Right. So and that is I think a very, very big advantage. Now people are asking, okay, that's a nice idea, but how do you bring this into reality? And the answer is we are not trying to secede from existing states or form new city states. It's instead piggybacking on the special economic zone development, where you already have several thousand zones in the world that have different regulation from the rest of the country. And we would ask the country, okay, to grant us a certain autonomy so that we can make a free private city happening, or international city, as we call it, as a commercial product. And states can be sold to that if they expect some benefits, which is bringing foreign direct investment, creating jobs, or making even direct payments out of the profit of this city operator. Mm-hmm. And in so far, I'm confident that eventually this will be successful, that we have a chance to succeed, because people just do not want to pay for things they have not ordered, right? And they don't need thousands and thousands of laws to live peacefully together. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to be censored, regulated, and all that. So I think eventually people go where they're treated best. And so I would say this is unstoppable. Mm-hmm. The Free Cities movement is going beyond that. This is encompassing all kinds of intentional communities, network states, everything where people, like-minded people, want to live together under certain premises, like non-aggression principle, right? We have seen some of those projects. They don't need legal autonomy from the state. So our idea, this is the much tougher job because it requires years of negotiations with governments. Mm-hmm. But many people are just starting, right? We have one group that has just taken over an abandoned Spanish village and creating their own community there. But they are all, thanks to us, also most of them are linked together now. So you can really leverage what you have done and other people can copy it. And I see a trend of people just they're looking for alternatives. I mean, it's getting, since COVID has been increased tremendously, but I would say with the censorship complex that we are seeing now, more and more people, or the currency issues that you are also talking about, and rightly so, we will see a lot of more people saying, hey, and especially talented people asking, okay, is there an alternative? And I think free private cities are. This is an alternative for living together, which is giving you much more freedom than you have today. And it's raising the quality of wealth for everyone, for the poor, for middle incomers, for rich people. But rich people do not need free private cities. They already have 20 states that have zero income tax. They can you make use of flag theory and go to several jurisdictions with what they're doing. It's more for the normal people that this is the model.
And so in reality, how many projects today run as part of the foundation? Yeah. Or, I mean, at least take part in the foundation, even if they were not born from...
Yeah, no, the foundation itself, it's a non-profit, right? Mm-hmm. They just are basically observing what kinds and collecting
but it's like a network, right?
It's a network, yeah. And I think we have about, I don't know the exact number, about 15 projects on the community directory, which I can also invite people just have a look at the website. It's free-cities.org. Mm-hmm. And then there's a sub-website where you can see, a sub-page where you can see which projects in which parts of the world. But most of those projects are intentional communities. That means they have no official legal autonomy. Yep. So they are not they can't make the free private city model happening. They can just simulate it with internal regulation and factual being like far away from the arm of the state. Right?
It's as if you put the goalpost with the vision, the ideal vision out there, and other groups are trying to at least mimic some of it so that they can at least improve the society and the conditions that they live in. And I've heard some really inspirational stories over the past few days from some of these communities. So do you want to touch maybe on Prospera or on other projects that you were part of or know quite well?
Yeah, no, Prospera and Morazan, these so-called ZEDEs in Honduras,
ZEDEs are the special economic zones there, right?
Yeah, but the traditional special economic zone is normally just that you have some export-import duty reliefs, tax reliefs, and maybe some simpler labor law.
Yes.
But what we are looking for is, as I said, is much more, right? Basically, we want what is happening in Honduras is in a way already going into that direction to a large degree, because the Honduran ZEDEs, they have the right to. Well, let's put it the other way. They have to. They are under sovereignty of Honduras, so they're kind of municipality type structure within Honduras. But the only thing that Honduras is taking care of is foreign policy and defense, and the criminal code of Honduras does still apply. But other than that, they can really make their own rules, and even the criminal code is applied then by institutions of the ZEDEs, because nobody wants to be prosecuted in a Honduran court, right? So that's not attractive to expats, and that's why they said, okay, but we want you to apply the Honduran criminal code unless the parliaments decide otherwise. But that is happening, and so within that framework, they have a large autonomy, and they did all kinds of innovative things. I was myself chief legal officer between 2017, 2019, or 2016, 2019, and get approval from the government and had a negotiation with the government. And
at Prospera.
At Prospera, which was, I think, back then still called ZEDE of North Bay or something, but it's the same project. And
so for people who don't know, this is in Roatan, right?
Yeah, that's on the island of Roatan, which belongs to Honduras, but it's a half English-speaking island because it was part of British Honduras before. So it's a little bit different from the rest of Honduras. It's also much safer, right, which islands typically are, and it's already quite attractive to tourists. They have direct international flights from Miami, even Toronto, and cruise ships are coming, so it's a quite attractive location. And the Prospera team, Eric Brimman, Gabriel Delgado, and others, they have Jorge, the technical secretary. They have really done a great job by establishing regulation that is business friendly, that is friendly to the people. They have built the highest building on the island, and the permitting time was 24 hours.
Wow.
Right? I mean, that I heard the Honduran building company, the CEO or the chief of this, he was really enthusiastic. He said that is impossible in Honduras and maybe in any other country.
So how did that happen?
Well, they have a streamlined procedure, right? And they have, I mean, these building codes have been created over decades and even centuries, so it's getting more and more and more regulation. And then some politician wants to get elected, he has another justice idea that can be implemented in the building code. So it's ever getting more, it's never getting less.
Yeah.
Now, if you start from scratch, like in Prospera, you can come with a one-page regulation for buildings, right? And that is what's happened. And so far, this is just one example. Other examples are they have these reciprocity medical treatment things. So if you have, for example, you are a doctor or chirurgist in one OECD country, you are automatically approved in Prospera. It's a big problem in many countries.
It is. I know of many doctors that came from Soviet Russia in the 80s and 90s to Israel, and their licenses did simply were worth nothing, and they had to go through the whole process again.
Exactly.
And they were wealthy, and they had families and kids, and all of a sudden they started cleaning houses, being doctors, because they couldn't they couldn't be doctors anymore. That is ridiculous.
Yeah. And they were qualified, right? And
of
so
course.
it's and then you have to wait to work as a waiter. So
Exactly.
it's a waste of resources, and that's not happening there, right? I mean, that doesn't mean that automatically everybody can claim I'm a chirurgist, right? But there is also a procedure for people who are not coming from certain type of countries. But in any case, if you know that somebody is coming from a country where they have a good education, for doctors, for example, right? Then why shouldn't you approve him or her? And that is happening, right? So I would say Prospera is now under attack, or it's under attack since some years, since the socialists won the election. And if they have...
From the government, right?
Yeah, from the first government was supportive, and we could establish that back then in 2017. In December 2017, we got approval for the first ZEDE, and 2 other ZEDEs were following. One of them, Morazan, the operator, is also a good friend and a supporter of the Free Cities movement, Massimo Mazzone. It's a blue-collar working. It's basically a worker ZEDE, right?
Yes.
So that's why you never hear about Morazan in the press. It doesn't fit the narrative that rich kids from the US are coming and taking over the country.
Because it's everyday people that...
99% are Hondurans, and 90% of them are low-skilled working-class people. And they love it. Right, because it's just, I mean, this is, of course, a low-hanging fruit. If you create an environment that is secure, that has some infrastructure and is affordable, then you are so much better than what they have now, right? I've seen a picture of a young couple under a street light at night and holding hands with their dog sitting beneath them. And people told me that's not possible outside of ZEDE Morazan. I said, why not? Because nobody dares to go out at night because of the gangs. Wow, right?
Yes.
And what they can get there is, I think it's now $150, 60 square meter apartment with air condition, with washing machine.
Wow.
Cheap, right?
$150.
Including the security guards, right? So that's, people love to be there, because when the socialists attacked the ZEDEs, the companies that were at Morazan stopped working. They were too afraid that they got some legal trouble out of that. And Massimo told me at that time, about 2 years ago, he's going to stop any investment and waiting for the next government. But then the people said, we want to go there.
Going,
And so he resumed building houses. So at the moment, it's just a residential development.
It's a bottom-up already.
Yeah, but I mean, even this, without jobs, it's for them so much more attractive to live there and maybe then work somewhere else. So you can see that is, of course, something which the socialists do not like, so they're not talking about that. So talking about Prospera, they are rich people. This is more middle class type of thing. And
what are the chances that they're going to approve it?
No, they have been approved, and legally they're secured for 50 years. Yeah, what they're currently doing is what we know as lawfare.
Yes.
So they have lost, fortunately, they've lost their majority in parliament to change the constitution, to undo the constitution that made them possible. So they were recurring to lawfare. They have sent their guys into the Supreme Court. Not that the other governments didn't that the same before, right?
Yeah.
But that's how it works. You're sending your party people into the Supreme Court, and usually they make the wanted decision. But the problem for them is they say, no, the ZEDEs and their law and the constitutional amendments have been retroactively invalid from day one. And that is 11 years ago. Is this plausible? No, not at all.
Okay.
It's going against all kinds of principles, even of the Honduran Supreme Court.
Okay.
So they will lose the arbitration that is taking place in Washington at the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes.
Right.
That is the only protection the free private city concept has, right? I mean, the government has the bigger guns normally. So if they do not stick to the contracts and agreements and their own laws and their own constitutional amendments, then the only thing you can do is you can say, okay, I'm clear, this is like expropriation, and we're suing you in front of an international arbitration court, not to get the money, which
No,
is
just to
bring them back on the negotiation table. But I have some hope that this is going to happen. I think there's one more year and then a new election is upcoming. Because in Prospera we have seen how many jobs have been created, what innovative things what were happening. They have a Bitcoin center, they have a crypto education, they have gene therapy things, they have circular factories for cheap wooden houses. So it's super exciting, and they have a really, which is partly part of my work, they have a real agreement of coexistence, or a residence contract. So you really have this written contract that protects you and cannot be changed by neither the operator nor the ZEDE council nor the Honduran government or whoever. So people are really protected. And the funny thing is, or the ironic thing is, that this is real progress, right? It's trying out new things and seeing if they work. And the people who are trying to destroy that call themselves progressives. That's a joke, isn't it?
Of course, that's the doublespeak.
Yeah.
That's the hypocrisy of life today, where everything is being called in names that do not represent what is actually happening.
That is true.
Okay, so this is real, like, pioneering work. So if this succeeds in Prospera or in Honduras, the two projects, that will really mark the way to future projects in other places around the world?
Yeah, I mean, we have to count in that the ZEDEs in Honduras do not continue, right? I mean, after all, they have got a negative ruling against them from the Honduran Supreme Court. So at the moment, they're technically not existing any longer.
Okay.
And so,
but in other places?
Yes. And the good thing is, they have been in existence. So we have one, the ZEDE Prospera, that we were talking about on the island of Roatan, with all the innovative ideas. We had ZEDE Morazan, the first working class private governance model ever, was there. And it was very well accepted and still is. And the ideas will not go away again. My company, T-Police, is currently in negotiation with about 10 governments that are open to such ideas. They just see competitive advantage for them in the special economic zone world, right? It's in a way, it's the next level. So far, special economic zones were targeting only companies, and then people would work there and commute out of the zone.
Right, not residential.
No, residential, because would have meant one country, two systems, like Hong Kong, and many governments don't want that. But this is changing. We have already seen it in Dubai, where they said it doesn't make sense that we have all these precious real estate and it's standing empty at the weekends. So they invited restaurants and cafes and galleries and residents and said, okay, they also get a different setup for legal stuff, right? So and the why this happened in Dubai, the Dubai International Financial Center, I would say it's one of the most advanced special economic zones in the world. They have an own court system, which is manned by common law country courts from London, from Singapore. And the reason for that was that no financial industry was coming to Dubai, and the Sheikh was asking his advisors, why is this so? And they said to him, well, because of Sharia law. No financial institution will entertain that you're getting in prison just because you owe some money to somebody. And he said, okay, what is the law that these financial communities will accept? And then the advisors told him, well, the main financial centers in the world today are New York, London, Singapore, Hong Kong, all common law. Yeah, and then he said, okay, let's import common law. And then when the residential component came in, the managers of those financial institutions, they asked, hey, family law, we don't want Sharia law either. And so they established a family law based on common law, which is applicable in a region which is only 1 square kilometer of Dubai, but it already accounts for 10% of the GDP. That's enormous. There are several hundred companies there, and so far you can see what. And Prospera was just starting, right? You can see what's possible if you have the right legal framework that is enabling freedom, that is giving you guaranteed rule of law, independent courts that are really trustworthy.
Yeah.
And some people from the DIFC told me, my deputy CEO, Andreas Baumgarten, he was instrumental in setting up DIFC, especially the arbitration and legal mechanisms. Mm-hmm. And he told me a story that when first they established that, people were still cautious if this is working, right? Especially the courts, right?
How long ago was that?
That was, I think, 2006 or so, right? So the financial industry was waiting. And then there was a first case. And this was a big influential family from the Emirates against an English company. Mm-hmm. And I heard the story that the Emiratis, there was probably a ruling that is going not so well for the Emiratis. So they were running to the sheikh and told him, help us. And the sheikh looked at it and said, no, I think this is something the authority has to decide, which they did. And the court ruled against the Emirati family, and it was enforced and accepted. From then on, everybody knew, okay, this is real. This is not just... And that was the trust they created, and that what made them so successful.
Nice.
And now they have been copied 3 or 4 times in the world. So it's not a very large step to say, well, then that can also be an autonomous city, right? You go to residential from day one, and you let a private company govern that because they have better incentives. A lot of people think, private profit, that has nothing to do with politics and our living together. I tell you the exact opposite is true. If you have to make a profit or at least not lose money, you have an incentive not to waste resources and not to expropriate your people to get more for your plans. And you have also to be cautious when it comes to let's make a war, let's participate in a war, let's make the Olympic Games, let's make a big conference circus here, right? Because it's the people's money, and people would say like, hey, I have a contract.
I'm not interested.
It's not in the contract. It says I have to pay 1,500 euro a year for security and nothing else, right?
Nothing else.
And that is really, and on the other hand,
power to the people.
It's power to the people, and we have to be a service provider who is looking for customers, and we cannot force people into the system. Having said that, that's why we in Honduras started from scratch. Both projects started from zero because we do not want to force people into the system. It's completely voluntary. It's based on the principles of voluntarism. You look at the contract, you like it, you sign, and you come. You don't like it, stay where you are.
Right.
And this is the future.
I agree with you that is the future. Okay. So, let me see. You talked yesterday 2 days ago, a little bit about international treaties that exist for special economic zones. Is that something that people need to be aware of, that there is such a thing, that countries are supposed to respect certain rules related to special economic zones?
That is, again, not tailored to special economic zones or free cities. It's investor protection treaties. And in the special case of Honduras, they have made an international treaty about guarantees for the ZEDEs with Kuwait. So they're guaranteeing this for 50 years, which is another reason why they will lose that court case. But here's the point. At the moment, this is the best protection for those kind of projects. About 160 countries have signed the New York Convention. And New York Convention basically says that if there's an investor dispute, it can go to international arbitration, and weak country, we will respect that decision. Now you can say, that what good is an arbitration award against Honduras being done in London or Washington or Geneva if they do not respect it? Well, the reason that they do respect is and I've been told that even Latin American and third world countries are respecting those awards, because otherwise they will lose all foreign investment. Because everybody would then know, okay, they can expropriate me tomorrow and there's zero protection.
Right.
And that's not the case. So most countries have signed those treaties. They're respecting those awards, even if they're technically not so easily enforceable. They can only be enforced outside of the country. But normally this institution works, and that is our main protection effort, because we have no tanks or things like that. So we
no
have
weapons,
to we have to rely on. Of course, people can have weapons for self-defense, and we have security forces,
Sure.
but we are not an army, right? So
Sure.
the host nation always will have superior power when it comes to violent means or the tools of violence. So the only protection we have is that we have to rely that they stick to what they agree to, and that is supported by international treaties. And so the trick, quote unquote, is that we set up a company in a country that has an international investment treaty with the host nation and are protected by this treaty. And that happened in Honduras as well. So the Honduras
That is
Prospera is a
smart.
U.S. company. The U.S. has a bilateral investment treaty with Honduras. They're also part of CAFTA, DR agreement. So that is giving us some protection. And I think this is also a reason why it will work in the future. It has worked in the past, and I see no reason why this shouldn't be the case. Because what we are doing is attracting investment, and if they frighten away the investment, it will not come again. So they will think twice before they do that. Honduras will have to pay a high price for their decisions. It doesn't make sense.
And with the current trajectory of things in the world today, more and more countries are going towards bigger debts. People leaving them in order to find safe haven in other places, both in terms of security and in terms of taxation and legislation. So it's as if, in a way, the competition is growing between states. So it should be in their interest to start being more accepting and more friendly towards those kind of initiatives, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And some governments have recognized that. Okay. It's more either the smaller states, the bigger a state is, the more it can afford to just disregard their own contracts, right? So
which we've seen that they have done in recent years. They are corrupt sometimes, and they do that.
Yeah.
But maybe there are some honest
it's not necessarily honest. I mean, it's about incentives. Right? If the threat is that you're getting a big lawsuit against you and you have to pay billions of dollars, then you have a political disadvantage in your home country. So I think we have enough incentives. And the point is there are, especially in the Middle East, there are countries that are trying to treat their people as customers because they want to attract more customers. And then you have innovative countries in Latin America. You have countries, some countries in Africa that might be open to those ideas, and in Asia. Why? Because in that part of the world, the special economic zone is something normal. It's not so in Europe, and it's not in the US. But in other parts of the world, this is already standard that you have regions in the country that have different set of laws. So I think you're right. They will see this as a competitive advantage, and especially after the first. I mean, I could imagine if Prospera and Morazan now would have been getting the chance to work for 5 or 10 more years without government interference, they could have proven how strong the model works, and then many more countries, first in the region, then everywhere, would have copied that. And I can tell you, it's also a kind of I would say, how do you put this? It's anti-politics in a way. It's basically not attacking politics, but it's trying to diminishing politics. And it's also a political peace offer. We can say, you prefer a different model, which is more communitarian. We want to make a model based on DAOs, and we decide everything together. That's fine. We have absolutely no problem with that, as long as participation is voluntary. That means the different political philosophies can create their own free cities, their own whatever they call it, city or communities. And the countries that are host nations, they should also have a benefit. So I tell normally when I'm in negotiation with governments, it's not even a win-win situation, it must be a win-win-win situation. And by that I mean the host nation government should have something out of it, which is maybe additional payments, foreign direct investment, jobs, whatever.
Yep.
And then we should have something out of it. That is our autonomy, so that we can make our model work and hopefully make money, but in any case prove that people are happy.
Yep.
But the local population also must profit from that, either because they can work for the zone, for the city, or they can work within, or they can get better jobs, better whatever, right? And so far, I think Prospera already had provided that. They neighboring towns, a lot of people were already working for the zone, right? So, and for that reason, I think this will eventually be successful, even if we now have a setback in Honduras, because the model is creating benefits for everyone.
A win-win-win, like you said. Okay, I heard you mention in one of your talks in the past few days the World Economic Forum. It's an organization that a lot of my audience is very well aware of because of the policies that are coming out from the World Economic Forum recently and things that they are doing around the world, things that people like Klaus Schwab is preaching for with the fourth industrial revolution and infiltrating cabinets and taking over some politicians. And we are seeing, I think, the results of some of these global big agendas that are trickling down into governments and states. So can you share more about how and what is your level of knowledge of how the World Economic Forum works, and have you been part of those circles before? What can you share about it? Like, I just want a bit of maybe an inside view into that organization, because we talk a lot about it from the outside, and maybe you have some more intimate knowledge or understanding of how the things work there.
Yeah, I mean, I have not the closest intimate knowledge, but I have, as I told, I have been part of the establishment myself, and I know a lot of influential people, and I've also been to Davos, right? Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are overestimating what can be done by inviting some aspirational politicians to this young leaders forum or whatever. If you compare the infiltration, the political indoctrination that you're getting from daily news or newspapers, it's much more
powerful
than inviting people for 3 times a year, right?
Okay.
But there's absolutely no doubt that people like Klaus Schwab, they are kind of megalomaniacs. They think they can rule the world in a way that their ideas, which are basically crappy ideas. I mean, if you have taken the time and read Klaus Schwab's books, there is nothing original in it. It's just superficial blah blah. Mm-hmm. So this guy was a Club of Rome copycat guy. He came up with this great model of stakeholder capitalism, which is communism in disguise, isn't it? It's just a recycling of all the bad ideas. And on the other hand, I've been a CEO of a mining company. Every reasonable entrepreneur knows you need a social license to operate, right? You have to talk to the people that are around your mine. You have to present them what the results, what the opportunities will be. And you have to take care of their objections and their concerns. Mm-hmm. And that is normal, right?
Yeah.
This is not justifying an ideology or something like that. So that this is all a lot of hot air. So I know from some people, participants at the Economic Forum, that nobody takes them seriously. Mm. But maybe politicians do. Politicians also are mostly people that have no own ideas, so they're just repeating what they hear. And I think, Klaus Schwab is a kind of a thought leader, right? They think that.
Yeah.
But he's a hot air producer, in my opinion. Mm. That doesn't mean that the World Economic Forum does not want to influence people into their direction, their way of thinking. To form a kind of a world government type of thing. I think the main problem with those people is that they really do not understand markets. They do not understand the decentralized knowledge. They think they can rule. They have the wise lead. They are the wise leaders, and others are idiots.
Yes,
right. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. Mm-hmm. But most people that are coming to the World Economic Forum are coming there because it's a great place to meet other people that you normally would not meet in person. Mm-hmm. So that does not mean that these people would necessarily support what Klaus Schwab is doing, right? Okay. There's a time when if you're a CEO of a big company, you have to be there because the other CEOs of the other companies in your industry are there too. Uh-huh. And they pay a lot of money to do that. So it's a big business model for Klaus
Yes.
Schwab, no doubt about that. But you could have seen when Xavier Millet was holding his speech, and he was really, there is no market failure and things like that. And he got tremendous applause.
Oh, yeah.
I've been told repeatedly
How is that possible,
by-
right?
They like it, but they don't dare to say it. So I've often heard, we like your ideas, Titus, and what you're doing, but we can't say it openly.
Really?
Right, yeah.
From politicians?
No, from entrepreneurs.
From entrepreneurs. They don't dare
Yeah, but
to
same
be
with
bold enough to talk about
yeah,
it. Right.
yeah. Well, politicians is not so difficult because they are not interested in the philosophical, liberty-oriented theory of free private cities. They're just looking for jobs and investments, right?
Yeah.
And others, investors,
Because
they
that
don't.
can keep them on their seat.
Yes.
Give them the power that they need.
Well, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
It's a deal.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no problem with that. I prefer that over ideological disputes.
Yes.
The other thing is that people are saying, okay, investors, right? Some of them, especially the ones with really big money, they also don't understand the beauty of the private governance model. But for them, it's a real estate project, right? Which is also okay, right?
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you think that people sometimes attribute too much to the World Economic Forum. It's not as influential as some people think.
Yeah, I think, maybe a lot of your listeners don't want to hear that, but I would say that there's a big misconception in the world. If you think there is a group of super rich people sitting in a back office and making decisions what should happen with the world, that is not happening, right? Because we know who are the richest persons in the world. We know there might be some hidden billionaires, I admit that, but we know about what they have. And the amount, all the biggest 10 billionaires combined, is nothing against the budget of the US or of countries like France over a longer period, right? So if I think 226 German billionaires would be expropriated, which is the wish of some of the left side, that would last for 6 months expenses for the state of Germany, right? So forget about that. It's not that there's some secret source behind it. If people have budgets in the billions, they have the constitutional power to use that. They have the weaponized force, army and police and secret services behind them.
Yep.
These are the people that have the power, right? On which side of the guns are you?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And the guys behind the guns have the power. And you can see this lesson has been learned by some Russian oligarchs who were speaking out against Putin, or a very rich Saudi Arabian oligarchs who were trying to make their own story against the crown prince. They've just been arrested, right? And that is how the world works. There's no secret group of people putting Hitler and Stalin and Mao, establishing them. That is the kind of people do not understand the complexity of the world, so they create a kind of a Satan and say, yeah, there must be some hidden forces, right? No, I know billionaires. These people are normal. They have also their political opinions, which often might be wrong, and very often they are totally mainstream. They're not questioning the narrative. When I started, I thought, and when I started as a lawyer, right, and a young lawyer, which later I became entrepreneur, I thought, wow, successful entrepreneurs, they must be special persons. Billionaires must be geniuses. Well, not
so much, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
not so much. I think today you can become a billionaire when you make one decision right. But of course, you have to, it's not about luck. You have to have a basis. But a lot of people doing the same thing equally good, they're only becoming millionaires. But if you're in a special branch and you do the right thing at the right time, pop, you're a billionaire. That doesn't make these people super special,
yeah.
right? So that's just my 2 cents of
I
personal knowledge.
I appreciate that, yeah.
And so I would say the world is complex and there's nobody steering us. What we see is the result of human action,
Yes.
but not of human design, right? So there's nobody, not even Klaus Schwab, who can steer the world.
Right.
The world is far too complex. And again, the most people don't take him seriously that are the World Economic Forum. He's a waffler, right?
Right.
He's blowing hot air. The press loves him. But this is just, if you look deeper into that, and in his books, you would say, hey, this is really a kind of Karl Marx type of going into the details and say, we have to do this. And it's nothing. It's just superficial blah, blah. And so far, this is not a real danger.
I understand.
I would say.
I
right?
understand.
That is my personal opinion.
No, that's great.
Yeah. The danger is the combination of all these forces. World Health Organization, that is dangerous, right? If all
and the
countries.
United Nations sometimes.
I think. Yeah, they're trying to becoming more and more powerful on all fronts. It's a kind, but thankfully we have 200 different states, right? And if we had one world government, that would be total hell.
Right.
And I admit that they want that, right? They love that, and a lot of people think, intellectuals, journalists, think that's a great thing, right? It's a natural development that we're having a world government. I can tell you that it will be a total nightmare.
Of course.
No more exile. No for dissidents, for people who think they pay too much taxes. And you are basically then subject to whatever they decide. No more escape from that.
I know that they want that. It
competition.
just feels to me like it's never going to happen.
No,
They
it's
will
not
not
going to happen.
succeed.
No, they will lose. But they can create a lot of damage in a way.
course.
You know what I'm propagating is promoting the free cities. This is a total opposite.
Exactly. It's a decentralized model.
More decentralization, more
freedom.
different products.
Yes.
Instead of one product, one size fits all. But the reality is the number, we have seen this in the conference, several statistics, the number of states is growing.
Yep.
The number of special economic zones is growing exponentially. And I think these ideas of we rule the world with our wise knowledge is not going to happen.
It was 500 in 1995, and it's now 5,900 special economic zones today,
even more
right?
today.
It's from your
that was 2020. It's
2020, okay.
I looked it up, and
Even more.
ChatGPT says it's
So now
about
it's
7.5.
thousands around the world. So yeah, I'm with
and many
you.
of them are just warehouses. But you have others that are real territories, and even a country like Saudi Arabia is trying to establish a different legal system within their country at the size of Belgium. Neom, right, which is neighboring Israel.
Yeah, right. I wanted to ask you about Neom actually,
Yeah.
because when I looked at that project initially, and I read a lot about it, I saw magnificent visualizations that they created for it. It did look dystopian to me first time that I bumped into it, but it did correlate for me with the vision of 15-minute cities, where you will have everything very close to you, very convenient, but at the same time it will be highly, highly surveilled, and a lot of cameras and everything very high tech. And it did not feel to me like a very liberating project. It felt the opposite, as someone who loves freedom, who looks for freedom solutions. So I was kind of surprised when I saw that example in your presentation, Neom.
No, I'm fully on your side.
It doesn't feel to me like
I tell you what the good thing about Neom is. We can talk about this dystopian line and stuff in a minute. But what the good thing about Neom is, a country is saying, okay, we need a different set of rules.
Right.
And they claim that this should be the most liberal and most innovative regulation.
True.
Which is, you cannot combine this with total surveillance, right?
100%.
But they haven't delivered so far.
Right.
Right. And from what I hear, the reason is that there are internal struggles between the conservative religious fraction and the more open, more modern Western group around the crown prince, who understand that they cannot attract tourists for a beach resort if they say you have to have separate beaches, men and women. They understand that, but the others say it's against our culture.
I understand.
So this is a struggle we cannot influence. But my point is, if even a country admits that there is a need for a one country, two system model, then it's a small step to say, let the private company govern it. A free private city can be established there. Because this will be very probably a top-down model. Some family members are the top authorities of this, and then they coming up with this dystopian idea of the line.
The line, you guys should Google the line and see what that is.
But they thought they were very innovative, but I think the line should be, I don't know, 100 kilometers. Now it's 500 meters. Right? So and I ask who wants to live there. Right. Well, here in principle, here's the thing. We are in a development towards a new system, in a transition towards a new system, but not like the World Economic Forum people think it will become.
Okay.
The big transition will be the big rejection of them.
Right?
They do not know yet. They think they are the end of history, but they are just the ancient regime. But we are still in the early days. So I think the Saudis also will quickly learn, okay, if we do a complete surveillance, top-down architecture, you can only do anything within 15 minutes, then it's not attractive. Nobody will come. So they will adapt. I'm sure about that, right? Because they think economically. They know that, understand that. They have to be attractive, try to be attractive with that. And if they see that they're not attractive, then they cut the line from 100 kilometers to 500 meters. And now around that should be a more traditional development. So our point is in principle, it's not a bad thing if you can reach everything in walking distance. And that's also our attempt in our cities. We don't want skyscrapers and everything is in squares and you have to take a car to get to the supermarket on the other side of the road. No, we want more the old European city, like here in Prague, where you can walk and it's nice and not higher than 5 stories, something like that. And in the outskirts, then people can experiment and do whatever they want. It's after all, we are kind of libertarians, right? But we also want to have beautiful cities to be attractive. And we don't think that this dystopian glass, steel, everybody's living together to make as less ecological impact as possible, right? I mean, after
less
all,
carbon emission.
We are humans, and the beauty is what we consider beauty. And if we are not there, Earth is totally. Earth does not care about us at all.
Right?
It's just meaningless. If there are humans on this Earth, is meaningless. So we have to create a world as we see fit for our needs, and we like to have environment, an intact environment, and all that. That's fine. But the moment you start and forcing people, say you can't go further than 15 minutes because of environment. You can't do this and this and this
and
because
be taxed
of
because of your emissions.
We will survey it so that you are not throwing away litter.
Yes.
That is not attractive.
Right.
And insofar, I think our models will be just superior because we do not interfere in the lives of people so much. I mean, there will be protection. You will need some cameras in public spaces or at the border entries, right? But people will understand that. But we give some guarantees that we do not go into your phones or things like that. So because that would be our product.
Right.
And we will see what Saudi Arabia is offering, but the good thing is that the market will decide. And maybe there are in the future some Google towns where you're completely surveyed and that you are living a woke life 24/7. And in exchange, you get a universal basic income of $2,000 a month. And some people may be okay with that, right? After all, we are adults.
There will always be people.
And I have no problem. I mean,
that. Sure.
As long as they do
choice.
not force us into that system, which is exactly what the wise leaders want to do, right? So I think at the end, the market will prevail, even in Saudi Arabia, even with Neom, and they will adapt. Others will not adapt. They will disappear.
Interesting. I love your take on it. Okay, and lastly, I want to speak to you about a construct that is very relevant these days. It's always been relevant, but these days we see a lot more discussion about equality. In fact, they even use the word equity many times. But equality, from your book, you had a quote there of Hayek saying, from the fact that people are very different, it follows that if we treat them equally, the result must be inequality in their actual position. And that is the only way to place them in an equal position, would be to treat them differently. And I like that, because I think the whole construct of equality is a false construct in a way. We are not equal. We don't start as equal.
We're not even equally born, right? Despite this famous saying, I think, of the U.S. founding fathers. No, if I was born as the son of a basketball player, I would maybe have a much higher size of my body, and then I could become a basketball player. Now I'm just too small to become a successful basketball player. Yeah. That is how I was born, right? It was in my genes how big I will be. We can't change that. We are different. Yes. You can deny that, but I think it's Lee Kuan Yew, the founder of the modern Singapore, who said, people are different. If you deny this, then you will not understand life and you will fail. And every society that denies that we are born with different talents and skills and whatever denies that. So what Hayek means is the only equality we can guarantee is equality before the law. Mm-hmm. And this is already a big achievement, which was not normal, right? Mm-hmm. In the past, in the most time of history, the nobles had better rights than you, right? In many countries, you don't have to queue up now if you're part of the leading class. Yeah, you just pass the queue and go. Right. For us, for me as a Central European German, this is unjust. I do not tolerate people passing the queue, not whatever title they have, right? And I think it's in many are like that. So this is already an achievement that we say we all have to stand in the queue. Mm-hmm. We have all equal rights. But what Hayek means then, that will mean that if we all have the same starting area when it comes to the rules, then some of us are better, right? They are just, some have more luck, some have more skills, some have more talent. And this is just as it is. Now people coming and say, about John Rawls and that ideas of we should somehow redistribute that. But the in the name of equality, right? Exactly. But and
also for states. The weaker states should be given more money from more
which is
rich
incentive
states,
to waste money, right? You can boil it down from we have always these discussions within the European Union. Some countries are paying in, others get out. And within countries like Germany, you have federal states, same problem. Within the federal states, you have some communities who are wasting money, like Berlin, right? And others are paying for it, and then boiling it down to the individual. So I would say people are so different that if you would redistribute the world income of everyone, so you equal it all out. So everybody gets, I don't know, what would it be at 5,000, right? If all wealth in the world is equally distributed, give me 2 or 3 years. We have the same distribution that we have today again. Right? Because
people just rise up with their skills, their talents.
Many people that get 5,000, they don't have any money left tomorrow.
Yes.
Right? And others have it.
Of course.
Right? And that is just how it is. And so what the answer is, the best we can achieve, and we should try to achieve that. And that's what I'm trying to achieve with my government service model, is with equal rights for all. Right. That means also for the state provider. There is no public law that says I can do this and have immunity. No, I'm a service provider. The same common law principles or principles of the civil law book apply for me as for the customer. That means if you're not satisfied with my services, you can keep money back or say I demand that you improve it. And if you are not paying me, but without reason, I can cancel a contract, but not arbitrarily change, say, if right, by the way, we want to build a new swimming pool, so you have to pay double. And then you say, you have never asked me about that. I have not agreed to that, right? That's the point. What many people do not understand why I'm doing that, right? So I'm what is the problem with the state and all that? So I make an example that everybody can easily understand. Let's assume we want to buy a car. You go to a car dealer and say, I want to buy a car. And the car dealer says, yes, Efrat, you can buy a car, but here are my conditions. I choose the model for you, the color, the motorization, interior, and the price. And here's another requirement you must buy.
Oh, wow.
Nobody would take that deal.
Correct.
But with our state, that's totally normal, perfectly normal. So if you have to pay taxes, the amount they decide and change all the time.
And
usually
which
it's increasing.
taxes, they keep making them up.
And what are they used for? You have zero say in that,
Zero.
right? And if they deliver their basic functions badly, like security or infrastructure, you cannot keep money back. They can force you to pay. It's obviously an unfair deal. It's unequal.
Yes.
They decide, you have to obey.
And
That's equality I'm talking about.
And yet they preach equality.
Yes.
Right.
So I preach, we as a service provider are on the same legal terms as you. We have no special public right, public law, civil law for all. Same reciprocity laws for everyone.
Right.
And that works. And what about the equality in outcome? Some people will be more successful than others. Yes. But I think if we leave the people the freedom to be successful, to be what they are, and to make use of their talents or to not make use of their talents, then we will create a society that will take off relatively soon. That means the level of wealth will be so high. I have made some calculation examples in my book with Hong Kong, that everybody will have more in their pockets. And Hong Kong was a good example because they were so liberal, so free in their economic system back in the 1950s, 1960s, and only spending 2% for social things, that after 25 years, they still were only spending 2%, but that was due to the growing economy. In absolute terms, more than 4 times what they had before, and which other countries say, we are paying 20%, right? Mm-hmm. But the absolute amount was low, and that continued for 40 years. So at the end, everybody has more. Mm-hmm. And that is good news, right? And there is a group of about 5% in each society that really cannot help themselves. And these are also in free cities subject to caritative support, to funding, to religious or whatever social institutions that are taking care of them.
Right. Because
it's not so much, right? 5% is not a big deal. But if you say you are entitled for whatever, right? Free healthcare, free education, free everything, then people will stop working and will stop taking care of their health, will stop taking care of their old age pension because the state is taking care of it.
Yes.
So people will get spoiled.
Yes.
They will become
spoiled,
irrational,
lazy, irresponsible. Yes. Absolutely.
And that is another reason why I think our idea is superior, right, in the long run. This is a long
because it
term.
encourages.
It encourages you. And I think also from what I can say, I mean, I started with zero, right? My father was a military officer. My mother was a preliminary school, was a primary school teacher. And so there was not much money to give to me, right? They had to pay everything for their house, which we nearly had to sell because of 8% interest rate at that times. So I started from zero. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, if you create something for yourself, you feel much better than somebody's handing it out to you because you have mastered something in your life, even if it's just to survive and pay for your university studies. That is something that creates stronger people than people that are always saying, hey, but I have the right to receive this. And that is true for all societies. And I think we should encourage a system where people have to do something to make a living, but the people who are really incapable of doing that because of physical or psychological issues, they should be they should be helped, right?
For sure.
But not the others.
I agree with you. And Per Bylund said very nicely yesterday in his presentation on entrepreneurship, he said the real value is created by satisfaction. And this is exactly what you're saying. When you are mastering your abilities and your skills and you're learning something new or creating something new, the real value you are creating in the world is satisfaction for yourself and for other people. And that's what people are seeking in the end of the day. And I think that if your project and your vision is driving more satisfaction for people around the world, then you are doing the Lord's work. This is so important.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that is right, because at the end, people want to be what they are, right? Everybody, even here in this room, we have different preferences, different ideas, what is right and what is wrong. And if we have this Klaus Schwab top-down solution, a wise group of leaders decides what is right and wrong, at least half of us would disagree with them, right?
Right.
Now, in my system, there's no need to argue, because up to a certain degree, but you can, in principle, follow your own interests. And that means you can become the effort you want to become,
right,
and not the effort Klaus Schwab wants to become, or whatever wise leader thinks he knows better than you about your own life.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's the reason why we eventually will be successful, even maybe if takes another generation. Because you cannot fit 8 billion people into one framework of your liking. People are different, knowledge is decentralized. What they are currently doing with overtaxation, overregulation, censorship, loss of human rights because of pandemics or so-called pandemics. I mean, the next thing is climate change, lockdowns, or whatever.
Yes, of course.
Something is coming.
Yes.
This is impossible even to maintain the level of wealth we are currently having. Mm-hmm. There is no wealth without freedom for the individual actors.
Yes.
And they will learn this the hard way. And it may take a while, but eventually people will looking for better solutions, and I think we can offer them, at least partly, to some of you that like what we are doing. And then let the market decide, which is people voting with their feet.
1,000%. And how's the saying goes? It goes, first they ignore you, then they ridicule you or make fun of you, then they fight you, and then you win. Yeah. So we're in the fighting stage, more or less,
absolutely.
Right?
No, the German television has already made a broadcasting show against me.
Oh, really?
The state paid...
badge of honor.
Yeah,
you got that.
It is, because they...
Okay.
I mean, for me, it was kind of... claiming that I was basically the cause of all these free city, charter city movements in the world and projects. They were all coming together.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Made me kind of proud, right? Which is, of course, bullshit, right?
Of course.
We are as diverse and decentralized as we want to be. And it's a good thing that there are not only Tipolis and the Free Cities Foundation, there are other players around, which shows you for two things. First, there is a market, there is a demand. It's not just a crazy idea of one guy.
Yes.
And the other thing is there's momentum.
Good.
Things are happening, and I think the genie is not going back into the bottle.
Excellent.
Even if the two ZEDEs are not coming back, their ideas will prevail. It's only a question of time when Tipolis or one of our competitors is starting another Honduran-type project or ZEDE-like autonomy project somewhere in the world.
I can't wait to see what the future would look like for private free cities. Titus, where should people follow your work?
My recommendation would be to subscribe to the newsletter of the Free Cities Foundation, because if new projects are popping up, they will be discussed there.
Great.
And then you can have a look at, they normally have own websites and own explanations what they are doing. Mm-hmm. If my company Tipolis has a project, we will also announce it then, and maybe we can then talk again if it's a real project, and then we can discuss what are the advantages or maybe the shortcomings.
Yes.
But it's easy. Go to the website free-cities.org and then subscription newsletter. Well, have a look at the website. We have a fantastic podcast.
And then what about the conference next year? It's not physical, right?
It's not fully clear yet, but...
we're talking about Liberty in Our Lifetime.
Yeah, Liberty in Our Lifetime. We have once a year, there's a conference. Maybe it's online only and then again physical. But that's also information is on the website of the Free Cities Foundation. So you find everything there.
And
you
I
can
think
spend some hours on that website. if
yeah,
you're
yeah,
interested.
there's a lot of materials. I read there the white paper as well.
Yeah.
I think that in a few weeks you will also have some recordings of the current conference, right?
They're
The
already
people-
they're quickly this time. They're already partly
On the
published. Yeah, and there's YouTube Liberty in Our Lifetime, and that is accessible.
Yeah, I highly recommend people who want to check out some of those projects that are happening around the world. There's some crazy stuff that is happening and people don't know. And I know that a lot of my audiences are looking for where is the best place to go. It's a question I'm being asked quite a lot. So you should definitely follow both the work of the Free Cities Foundation, but also each one of those projects.
Yeah. Well, come to the conference. I mean, that's
sure.
You can meet the
It
people who
was
are
an
making the
amazing
project.
conference
Yeah,
the past 2 days.
And I mean, there are people what they all have created, right? Like Montenegro.
So inspirational.
It's incredible, right? It's
incredible.
So what people can do if they're just decided and engaged, that's tremendous. And if you're interested, you can talk to them and say.
Yeah.
Listen to their presentation, say, is this maybe something I could be interested in? I could be relocate.
Yeah.
We have projects all over the world.
The eco villages, for example.
That's good, right?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I really love
Yeah.
the conference was awesome, and the content on your website is priceless. So with that, I think, Titus, I really appreciate your generosity in sharing and the time you've taken to do this while we're still going on with the conference. So thank you so much for spending this hour with me.
My pleasure, Efrat.
Thank you.